Original Yankee Doodle Dandy. Yes, she was born on the 4th of July, and she really does have a real live Uncle Sam. She was quite literally born to be patriotic. For her, the political process in this country is just part of what makes us one of the greatest countries in the world. But lately, she's been feeling a little skeptical about the whole political machine. Here's Adele Vernon.
Good morning. Today I want to talk about something that I'm sure we're all tired of hearing about, politics. I know, taboo subject, but specifically I want to talk about the importance of voting. I know at some level we all know how important it is to vote. The ads lately tell us that this is the most important election ever, so we have to go vote. But seriously, folks, haven't we heard this before? I mean, 1776, the most important election ever. Lincoln running for president, the most important election ever. Hoover again, no, we can't do it, the most important election ever. A Catholic in the White House? No, the most important election ever. Slick Willie? No, can't do that again. Protect our interns, the most important election ever. I must admit, the onslaught of negativity and polarization, it's jaded me just a little. I used to love politics. I loved talking about politics. I loved debating political topics. For a while there, I was even a political science major until I realized that the only hope of a job with that degree is to either go on to law school and become a lawyer or change my party affiliation to Democrat and live out the rest of my life on Social Security and welfare. But, sorry for this. But lately, I gotta tell you, I don't love politics. And frankly, I'm getting a little tired of hearing about it. So, the other day, I started thinking, you know what? Maybe I won't even bother voting. I know that's awful to say, but I was thinking that. I was. Because, you know, neither candidate really excites me. And this way, whoever gets elected, I can say, you know what, I didn't vote for either one of them. But then something happened the other night. I was watching something on television that totally changed my outlook. And no, it wasn't one of the many hundreds of debates that were on. I was actually watching one of my favorite movies called Mississippi Burning. And I absolutely love that movie. It has great performances, the actors are great. If you've never ever seen it, it's got Gene Hackman, Frances McDormand, and William Dafoe. It's a really great movie. So I'm sitting there watching it, and for the first time, I suddenly remembered and looked at the premise of this movie. And the premise of the movie is about 3 civil rights workers who were killed helping African Americans exercise their right to vote. And that hit me so hard, because here were people who wanted to vote so badly that they would risk harassment and violence, and sometimes even death, just for the right to vote. And then if they even made it down to the election office to register, they had to undergo some obscure test where they had to answer questions about the Constitution that we couldn't even answer today. But you know what they did? They went home, they memorized that Constitution, and they went back and they took that test because they wanted to vote that badly. And today, we complain if we have to whip out a driver's license to vote. And think about the choices they had on that ballot. I mean, we complain today, but think about back then. They had a choice between bellicose sheriffs who were out to harass them, governors who pretended they didn't even exist, and senators who were outright racist. But they still wanted the right to vote. And think about the women voters, the women who are going through this suffragist movement. You know, they wanted to vote so badly, but the men that they were voting for, they didn't want them to vote. Why, they thought that they should still be sitting at home cooking and making dinner, not out voting. So that brings us back to today. Today, our Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court, even the White House reflects the diversity that exists in this country today. Today, when we go to the polls, we have the choice of electing somebody who represents our interests. Black, white, man, woman, it doesn't matter. You have choices today. And as bad as our options may seem to us today, I'm sure 60 or 70 years ago, the options were much worse, especially if you were a woman or a minority. And while we may feel that there's a lot at stake in this election, things like Social Security and Medicare, back when women were fighting for the right to vote, those things didn't even exist. And civil rights workers who were going around the country trying to help people to vote, you know what? They didn't even know if they were going to make it home in one piece. And that's what we have to remember. So after watching that movie, I took a look at my own priorities. And I started to look at the candidates, not just the presidential candidates, all the candidates. Because I know that I would feel about 2 feet tall if I had to stand in front of my great-grandmother and say, you know, I just didn't vote this time because I didn't feel like there was anybody really to vote for. Knowing how proud she was to vote for the very first time. And there are other political offices at stake in this election, not just the presidential ones. So we owe it to those who came before us to take the time to become informed voters. Because they fought so hard to give us this right, we can't let their struggle be in vain. So early voting starts this Saturday, so let's all get out and vote. Thank you.